Hey guys, it's Sean Hammond with Premier Guitar. We are at Winter NAMM 2020 talking to amp legend Mike Soldano. Mike,
Whoa.
I've been reading about you for like decades. You're famous for this amp that we're hearing here, the SLO100. It's nice to finally meet you and put a face to the name. Tell us about this iteration of the SLO100.
Okay, well, yeah, and it's great to be here. Great to meet you as well. And this is the new yet old Soldano 100-watt super lead overdrive, the SLO100. This is the amp that put me on the map back in the late 80s, and it's still...
For people who don't know, who aren't geezers like us,
okay.
who don't know all the famous people that use them, like Clapton.
Clapton, Mark Knopfler, Warren Haynes is still trucking his around the country all the time. Lou Reed was a big customer of mine. All the metal bands back in the day with the big hair, pretty much all of them had, anybody that had white in their name, like Whitesnake, Great White, they were playing these amps. So I've been blessed with a users list that looks like the who's who of rock and roll. It's been an amazing 3+ decades and a crazy wild ride, and I'm so excited that I'm back again and with even more flame and vigor than I've had before, and I've teamed up with Boutique Amps Distribution to keep the Soldano legend alive.
Congrats on that.
Thank you, yeah.
What was the impetus for what we have here?
So, the original, going historic.
If you want to go way back, or I just want to talk about how this one evolved from the other one.
Well, a lot of people, I think, do know the history of the original SLO, so I will talk mainly about what's here now. So this is the amp, again, like I say, this was my flagship amp. It's argued that I set a new benchmark for high gain tube amplification when this came out back in 1986, I think was the first production one I ever built.
Is it technically cascading preamp? Is that what that was kind of the big deal? Yeah. Part of the big deal?
Part of the big deal. And so what? Prior to this, there were other people that were doing high gain stuff. I mean, I'm not the first guy to do it, but the way they were creating the distortion was a little different in that they were basically taking a really clean amp and then they were taking one 12AX7 or a half of a 12AX7 and then putting that and blasting away and just, driving the amp in distortion, which is a way to do it and it works. But I kind of was looking for something that was a little bit more refined, something that would articulate better, not quite so mushy sounding or muddy. And so kind of an analogy I used to use forever, and it's probably a little bit tired now, but what I used to tell people would be the difference between driving a stick shift car that had 2 speeds and then one that had 6 speeds. Whereas with the 2-speed one, you'd take off in one gear and then you would just like clunk into high gear and then there's this big bleh, and then away you go. Instead, the way I build up the gain in my circuits is I don't overdrive any particular tube very hard. In other words, I just push one tube to just barely overdriving, but then I take that and put it into another one and I barely overdrive that one. And pretty soon after a bunch of stages, I've got all the gain and saturation I want, but I haven't lost any of the original tone DNA because it hasn't been just smashed up against the wall real hard. And so I think it creates a more refined sound. So anybody who's ever played one of my amps one of the first things that they'll notice is that they articulate better than pretty much any other high gain amp out there. And that was sort of my goal. I wanted something that was really articulate, yet still would sustain a note for 5 minutes if you wanted to, And so that was the original architecture, which is still there. All of the original DNA is still in this amp, including the styling, the look, and everything else. But the things that are new in this new SLO is we've gone to DC heater power supply in the preamp tubes. And the main reason we've done this is it's nothing to do with tone. It's more about quietness. Over the years, 12AX7s have become increasingly noisier, where there's more of the AC coming from the heaters bleeding into the audio path. And so towards the end of production, when I was still building these amps, I would literally spend an hour with every amp in my test room swapping out 12AX7s to find the quietest one for the first gain stage, because any noise in that first stage gets multiplied many, many times going through the amp. And so I always managed to do it, but it was a big pain in the butt, and it was even a bigger pain in the butt for end users when they had to go to retube. So we solved that problem. Now we have DC heaters in there, the noise is gone, dead quiet, throw any tubes you want in it, and it sounds great. The other big change was the effects loop, and I almost chuckle about it now because through the 30 years plus that I was building this amp, I could never make any particular, I could always make somebody happy with a loop, but I could never make everybody happy with it. There was always, I'd do one thing and be like, oh, that's great. Oh, I hate it. Then back and forth, back and forth. We finally have a loop that everybody seems to love. It's more modern too. The way people are using their effects has changed since the 80s. The way people set up their rigs has changed. I mean, it's just a whole different world. No longer are a lot of guys using big refrigerator-sized racks full of rack gear. They're using floor pedals, and there's all these amazing and wonderful boutique pedals being made nowadays, and guys want to be able to use those. And truth be told, the original SLO didn't play friendly with a lot of the more vintagey type of pedals and stuff. So this new loop is located post master volume. It's got a signal level that's totally compatible with any kind of floor effects, yet it still has enough range and headroom that you can use it with rack gear if you still want to go that route.
Is it series or parallel?
It is series, but what we've done on the new version, which I used to offer as a mod back in the day, and now it's a standard feature, is we have a way to completely switch out the loop and hardwire bypass it. So if you want to just not even have the loop at all, you can hardwire and get past it. And on the SLO, we've put a second button on the foot switch, so now you can kick the effects loop in and out, which adds an extra level of versatility to the amp because there's a level control on the back for the return on the effects loop. So even if you don't plug in any effects at all, but you want to have a solo boost, you can use that level control on the back, kick the loop in and out, and now you have a solo boost. And it just takes the whole amp and moves the volume up or down to fit whatever you want to do with it. So with this new loop, the amps become much more versatile, and then we do a few small little things, like we put a switch on the front to be able to switch between channels, which up until now you had to have the foot switch to do so. Never was a problem for me, but apparently people thought it was somewhat inconvenient when they were in the studio. So we addressed that. The depth knob is another thing that is now a standard feature, which I was offering as a mod all the times on the original SLOs, and it became so popular that more people are asking for it than not. So we decided it was just a good feature to build in. So now depth comes standard on the SLO. And so this is the new SLO. And with boutique, we now can offer more styling. I mean, I used to offer a lot of colors, don't get me wrong. But now with their in-house capabilities and their resources, you can now get a different colored front panel on the chassis. We offer it with either the classic metal grill that I came up with back in the day, or now a cloth fabric if you want more of that older, more vintagey look. Different grill cloths, different colors, with or without metal corners. Sky's the limit.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking a lot about all the cool features and updates and history and all that.
Right.
Should we have Steve demo some other sounds, maybe one or two others, and then we'll talk about your next amp?
Yeah, you betcha. So, Steve, you want to do some overdrive stuff now? Okay, so I'm going to switch to the overdrive channel, and we're going to let you hear what the real Soldano thing is all about.
Nice. And yeah, there's hardly, it's very quiet
Yeah,
when you
listen.
turn it on. Yeah.
Totally quiet. That's DC heaters and great design.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah, so the pot is turned up now, and okay, nice. Very good. All right, so Mike, now we have another amp over here, the SLO30, right?
Yes. This is an all-new amp. This is the new SLO30. And the whole drive behind this is, once again, changing times, constantly customers coming, and end users coming going like, I love my SLO. Can I get something smaller that I can, do?
It's too damn loud.
Yeah, something for my home studio, something for the smaller gigs I do. And so we decided, rather than just, making a small, and I actually did years ago, 2012, I came out with the Hot Rod 25, which was sort of an answer to that question, in that it was basically a little 25 watt SLO, but it didn't have all the features of an SLO because I was trying to keep it in a very, very small package. And so when we had a chance to look at it again, I was like, I really want a true scaled down SLO with all the features of an SLO. And that's where this amp came from. So
at 30 watts, is it a different power section than the 100? Because the 100 is 5881s, right?
This is still 5881s, but now it's just two of them, and we lowered the plate voltage, which is kind of gives it that little bit of squishy, which is really cool. And so the front end is all identical to this SLO right behind me. So it's the same normal channel, overdrive, EQ, the bright and normal switch, the clean crunch switch, all that's the same. We added the depth knob because the SLO has that now. We put the same Postmaster effects loop in it, although this one is not foot switchable like the one in the SLO. So this one, the loop is always in the circuit, but it's totally transparent when you're not using it. And so it's just a really nicely packaged version of its big brother and the legacy, the SLO.
How would you say that you can get the exact same tones, or is it a little bit more? How would you describe the difference other than the lower plate voltage and lower volume and all that?
At any volume level below power amp distortion, you'll get exactly the same tones. And then when you do lean into it to where you get the volume up to where you're starting to push the power section, it's going to break up a little more readily. With the lower plate voltage, you're going to get a little more compression, and it's going to be, it's still going to have the articulation, but it's just going to be a little more compressed. But it's actually good because you'll save your ears that way, and you won't get kicked out of the club. Right. So it really works out it works out good all around.
Cool. So what are we going to have Steve demo for us first?
Start with, just to show that the tones are very similar, I'm going to bring him in on the overdrive channel just like we just did with the SLO so that you can hear that. And then I'm going to back it off and show that it's got the versatility with crunch and clean.
A little bit vintage, more vintagey sounding.
Yeah, maybe a little.
To my ears.
Yeah. Exactly. So now we're going to go back to the normal channel, and this will be the extreme opposite because this is going to be totally clean. So play something funky, Steve.
Very nice.
In that same channel, we can flip up the crunch switch and we can get a nice, like classic crunch thing. Not as high gain as the overdrive channel, but still with some good drive. So yeah, go ahead and roll that master back, maybe even a little bit more. And then I'm going to flip this switch. And now we've got this is kind of what I call my sort of classic rock sound.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. How much are these going for?
Steve. Well, I just get to design and build stuff. Oh, well,
Steve, do you know the prices? 2,500.
Finish you get it in. The classic metal grill regular finish is $24.99. This is the salt and pepper. Anything besides the classic metal is another couple $100. So any of the other coverings you want, so it's like $26.99, 27. So yeah, it's really incredibly reasonable for an SLO. Seriously, like he and I are both giggling about it because it makes it affordable for most guitar players, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right in that perfect price range slot. These things are going to go like wildfire. Order yours now.
Well, speaking of that, do you want tell people where to go online to check out this stuff?
Well, they can check it out at Soldano.com. They can always get us through the Facebook user page. I answer a lot of questions there. I get that all the time. If you call the Soldano line, it actually rings at my desk. So you'll talk to me personally. Yeah. I get a lot of them. So yeah, you can get them through. And then we're going to have selected stores coming out. Quantity. They're not going everywhere. You've got to. There'll be selected stores announced very soon. I could tell you, but I might have to shoot you.
All right, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to meet you. Congrats on being back with all this stuff. And everyone, click subscribe before you go so you can hear and watch all of our other NAMM videos and all the other stuff that we do. And we'll catch you later. Do you want to play us out?